The boss wants this place kept safe.
You ever been Wong Wing? Because I'm feeling a bit Wong Wing. Got no intro again because we're up to 14 of these and the well's run dry. We've actually started excavating the bottom of it. We're going to put a lovely wine cellar down there.
It's funnier because he has a...
Whoa, whoa, ah! We were sitting here so long I forgot to consider that there were people around us.
I guess Joker's feeling better.
Okay, well, thanks for taking the only opportunity I had to grab him to show me that he had proximity mines. Ah, and then they're doing it again where they see us somehow.
We just need to couple that with... Who can say where the road goes?
I thought you were going to go with... I will remember. I could probably start doing that. Have a death counter with just random power ballads every other time. I think I'd run out. Is the problem? We die too often.
Oh, there's way too many power ballads for you to run out.
Oh, but we do also die a lot, especially in this room where you still haven't beaten it. Oh, he did the bat flex again. Did you catch it?
That's funny.
He's not going to do it now. For some reason, every time it loads, he does the weird little back flexing.
That thug's armed with proximity.
So that dude's got proximity mines.
What if I tried a little bit of a different approach here?
Well, I should certainly hope you do that. I've never been a fan. Here we go. We got our first topic off the rant bus. Just pulled up. Boop, boop, boop.
It's backing up.
Why, you great big, was this your plan? Let's try a different approach. Head on! I don't want to use my head! You teleported him to the dark dimension. He went out of the door through the door. That was a very weird...
I bowed to him.
You were like, wow, you are clearly the master of strategy.
Hey, it got me at least somewhere.
Yeah, dead.
The morgue.
The rant bus, however, has just been unloaded, and I've lost my tracking invoice. I forgot what I was going to talk about off of it, and I'm stretching this analogy too far. Oh, I've never been a fan of the phrase. The whole insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I've always hated that definition,
I think it's.
and I'm not sure why.
I just think it's too trite at this point.
Yeah, it
It's a
means
little-
nothing.
Yeah.
And it's also untrue.
It's a freaking
Like,
miracle.
the problem is people use... I think, obviously, because I believe it was Einstein said it.
Yeah, it's
But it's like it was intended, I think, as an ironic statement. I don't think he meant it literally. And yet, too many people,
How
I think,
so?
use
I
it
mean, what do you
literally
mean?
today. Well, because that's not actually the definition of clinical insanity.
Well, of course not. I don't
And yet,
think
I
he was
think
ever claiming that.
No, but I think a lot of
Clinical
people
insanity
nowadays are.
Thinking that it's
They
the
act
clinical
like
definition.
they act like, oh, it's, and it's. I don't know. I don't know if it's that I don't like it as a principle, or I just don't like the people who say it.
well,
It's always rubbed me the wrong way. So there you go. Is the rant bus got any deliveries for you?
I think I'll leave that one alone. I don't know that I have that
there's-
strong an opinion on that
Well,
particular
not. I'm
topic.
saying the rant bus carries many a thing. Is there anything else on the rant bus for you today?
I don't know that I'm ranting about anything.
Well, that would be a first, wouldn't it?
Wow.
I'm gonna get this guy because he went off alone. If
well-
the game will let me.
You see what happens when you go off alone.
There you go. You get drop attacked by strange men in Batman costumes. I learned that last time I was in Glasgow.
That's how Houdini died, you know?
Okay, sure. Oh, I'm already feeling off to a better start with this game than the last one. I feel like the last one had me a little tense. Now I can just sit idly by and pick people off slowly one by one. That's how I like to unwind.
Against the wind.
Can't, what? What?
Against
That doesn't make sense in this context.
Sure it doesn't.
We're
It's
in
about
an-
as much sense as that song. It's the entire chorus is just against the wind repeatedly.
I don't know which song you're referring to.
Oh, well.
Here's what I'm gonna do. Here's masterclass strategy with Batman.
That one's only a Bronze Star.
I'm
'cause that
going
one's a fairly
to.
weak
I'm
song.
gonna disable that guy's gun and drop attack this guy because that guy over there
Then
is
that guy
obviously
will
gonna
go,
hear me do this. Ah, but he had a friend. I didn't count on the friend. Aha, now none of them have guns. You fools! None of you have guns. Get out of here, Batman. Get on the desk. Run. A lot of ways away. I was going to try to make a song, but it escaped me.
But
right.
you didn't escape them.
But I didn't escape it. So one of these guys, this guy's looking like a willing volunteer. Come on in here. Oh, I can't take two of you. It's a one. I've only got one available seat. One of you is gonna have to. Well, you come on.
Step
Whoop,
one.
whoop, whoop, whoop.
Do you have what it takes to join the Homestommy?
Wow. Come on, pal. I got some hard candy in my pocket. Come on, come on. Oh, okay, that guy's standing on the grate. The problem is, I don't think I can get down there without him noticing me. Notice me. Get in the grate. No, don't run away. Get him. Dang it. I missed my
You're gonna have
opportunity.
to just wait. Patience is a
someone's-
virtue. Like a
Well, that
coiled
guy's gun-
viper, he
well,
strikes.
That guy's gun is still disabled. I forgot that would do that.
Disable the shield.
I need. What are these weird? Oh, that's bits of broken glass. How did that fall through the floor? I don't know what I'm doing. I missed my chance with that guy, and I don't think anyone else is coming down here anytime soon.
Nobody loves me.
Whoop. Well, okay, I got him. You want to come down? So help me.
Especially not Rachel.
What? Really?
Rachel.
I don't
That's
need
probably the least compelling
anybody
line
else.
that Christian Bale delivered in that entire series.
Well, I
You can't defend
I
that.
don't. Well, but I don't. I think it's a low-hanging fruit to try and pick on
Well,
it too.
that's probably true.
Like what? Why does that matter?
It doesn't.
No one's coming down here to help me. I just want to hold you. Well, this strategy isn't going to work. Ooh, but that guy's off on his own. That's the secret, is never be alone. I don't know how I did that with my voice, but I did it.
You harmonized with yourself.
Don't fall asleep. Ah! Crap!
You couldn't think of anything more
I
clever.
forgot that they laid mines. Yes, it's me over here. Quick before anyone else. Quickly, there is no time. Ah, bad times. And bad times. Hi, Savannah. I'm gonna get shot a lot. Okay, well. Oh, hey. How about I do? Let me just.
He's just
Let me just.
taking
Let me
this-
just pry this.
taking my
You don't need
sweet
that.
time.
Get that out of here. Okay. Well, now they're gonna notice that, no doubt. Somehow they didn't notice me run across the room, unobstructed. But sure. I suppose. Ooh, I can blow something up. That would be a fun way to do that. There's 4 of them, and one of them's got a disabled gun. And I'm doing flips in the corner. Ooh, what happened to our knee? That actually looks painful.
It looks like some sort of biker wound. That's road rash.
Well, given the amount of times we've fallen from rooftops, I'd believe it. I should click on this. Now they'll all come near here. What? Use the disruptor to jump. Oh! That was... Hey! I got an achievement for something accidentally. Oh, are you coming in here, pal? Ah!
He's just tossing a mine in
Well,
there.
I think it's a grenade. Well, I applaud your creativity, but it's not going to stop me.
What is it? What is the phrase? Turnabouts? Fair play.
Now, what you should do is walk right in front of this wall that okay.
You missed it.
I thought it said will collapse. Oh, with an explosion. This isn't the kind of plywood that I can break through with my
that's
hands.
sad.
If Batman could punch through concrete, he'd be more overpowered than he already is.
This from a guy who bullets literally bounce off of.
Is that the same college humor sketch?
Yes.
You're on your own. Haven't you learned your lesson? Ooh, they have. The answer is yes. I didn't realize those did that much damage. I thought they just alerted them to me.
He just laid down and took
We
it.
were making good... Well, I think he was like, well, I deserve that.
This might as well happen.
Gotta have some kind of liquid on hand because my throat's getting all cloggy.
I'm pretty sure Batman said that exact thing.
Well, yeah, you gotta wonder. The real person you gotta ask is, what is Alfred giving him every time he comes home that lets him talk normally the next day? He spends the whole night talking like Batman, and then he somehow is fine.
I think he just makes these, I'm a chain smoker.
Bruce Wayne had to take up, okay, what strategy are you employing? Can I ask this? Would you like to explain?
Secret. Apparently nobody cares.
Well, they will when you start reefing on him. Prepare to get shot. Well, I suppose that...
Okay.
Colossal fruitcake. Whoa, your cape glitched. Give me that. Give us a turn. I was going to make a joke, and now it's gone. Oh, yeah, the smoking Bruce Wayne. I think it's just some kind of, I don't know, something Alfred learned when he was, where did he say he was in that one, in The Dark Knight? He says he was doing the jewel thief mission thing.
No, I have no
Doesn't
idea.
he say something like
Siberia or something?
No, I thought it was like a Southeast Asian nation. It was like Thailand or something. See, if you had come up and done this, giving him the old stinky armpit.
How do you do that?
It's the contextual stealth. It's not, you don't just start beating him up, you actually have to stealth grab him. Ooh. No, never mind. I've got them silent, or not silent, ignorant. And I would like to keep... Oh, crap. I forgot. That's the one thing I don't like about this. Is... I took... Oh, that was really close. I took a guy out, and because somehow Joker keeps track of every one of his thugs' vitals, which would seem like that would take a NASA-grade computer to keep that information updated constantly. And then he realizes that someone's been taken out, so it takes all the planning out.
That's a secret. He's actually the
He's got...
proverbial Moriarty to your Sherlock.
And he's got a NASA-grade computer?
Sure.
I don't know that Moriarty had NASA-grade
Well, I'm saying
computers.
both of them were, like, he would be as wealthy as Batman if that comparison were
Well,
extrapolated.
theoretically, given... you got a point there, given that Batman, with all his stuff, can't stop him. Clearly, the Joker must be equally as well armed. But I think, I don't know, I think the Dark Knight gets it slightly better with just the, I'm a man of simple taste. Like, I think there's a degree to which that film worked because that's kind of true.
You know what they have in common? They're cheap.
It made them sound much more like, I'm not sure who, but it was...
What did you... Wow.
It had a slight sort of...
Gonzo?
Not quite...
Scrooge made his way up the staircase. Batman made his way up the staircase.
Carrying out a button for the darkness.
Darkness was safe, and Batman liked it. Dynamite was cheap, and I liked it.
Now, that is a... You probably weren't expecting that mashup today. Oh, that guy's gun is still jammed. So I should try and do something about that.
Now I'm not going to be able to hear Joker as anything.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Like, what, Rizzo the Rat could be like Penguin or something?
No.
Fozzie Bear!
As Penguin?
They'd have to do
I don't think Fozzie's got to
Okay,
be
so if they did a Muppet version of the
of
Batman.
Well, who's going to be Batman? Is it Kermit? It has to
gotta
be
be
Kermit.
Kermit.
Kermit's the only one who's ever got any sense. So it's got to be I am the night.
Where were the other drugs going?
Where were the... We're going to butcher that. Where were the other drugs going? Where are they? Do I look like a cop? The problem is he would just come across almost as a sort of... it would almost be like a the negotiator interrogation thing where it's like he's more just you'd come across as like a genuine. Do I look like a cop? Where were the drugs going? And secretly that would work.
Swear to me.
I think people would be so unnerved that they would just tell him stuff. Well, now we have to make this happen. Except it can't be with any of the actual people. It's got to be all terrible impressions.
I feel like, didn't the guy who played Miss Piggy, didn't he like not sign on for the last one that they did?
Yeah,
this
we
one
talked
for
about
sure
that.
he would be like, no.
Or maybe he would. Well, who would Fozzie be? I don't think like Fozzie can be a villain.
Yeah,
You'd have to keep the fair. You'd have to.
Fozzie would have to be Alfred.
Whoa, that fits far too well. Although, well, does it? The more I think about it,
I don't know.
Alfred's normally one of the more sort of sane, reserved. I'm not sure Fozzie can. But then again, I'm not sure who else could be Alfred. I missed my chance.
Definitely couldn't be Gonzo.
Well, no, Gonzo, I think, is perfect as the Joker because he is the most chaotic of all of them. Ooh, animal is Bane. We're coming up with something great here. Fund our Kickstarter. Oh, wait, what do we call it? What? The Muppets.
What are you doing up there?
The Muppets' Darkest Night.
Darkest Night. I feel like you want to go back to the traditional Muppet movie names of the day when it was like Muppets Take Manhattan and the Muppet. What was it called? The Great Muppet Caper or something?
And
We're not scared of you.
Yeah,
Classic
not
Theater.
just like, Muppets Treasure Island. As much as Muppets Christmas Carol, as much as those are good movies, the names
the Muppets
are a little... it can't just be Muppets Batman.
No.
The Muppets Take Gotham.
that would be good.
Well then what does Rizzo get to be?
I don't know. That's the question.
Riddler.
No,
He's not... No, you're right. He's not... I don't know. I feel like Rizzo, maybe I was too quick to judge Rizzo as Batman, or as Penguin.
As Batman.
As Penguin.
Well, that's
Because I think it works. He's got this sort of slightly more mobster-esque vibe.
especially with all those other rats.
Yeah, with all the other rats, and he's got the accent, he's kind of got the attitude. It makes sense.
What? What?
Up there. I see him.
Oh, Mr. Freeze. I'm not sure, Mr.
that
Freeze. We
would have
can't.
to be. What's that one
Oh,
guy's name? It's the
oh,
dog.
Sam. No, the eagle.
The eagle.
He's already big and blue. It works. Or Grover.
Grover.
I'm fuzzy and blue. I'm icy and blue. Oh, I'm happy to be so icy
Well,
and
but isn't
blue.
Grover technically more of a Sesame Street? I know that both of them were technically
yes, but
Muppets,
he was.
but
Well, all the Muppets have been on Sesame Street at some point, I think.
really? Was Kermit the Frog on Muppet?
Kermit was originally on Muppets. He used to be like the news broadcaster.
If
This
you
is
can't
Kermit the
tell,
Frog
we
coming
have,
to you on Sesame Street
we
News.
have a massive affinity for...
Well, we already talked about how much we admire
Did
Jim
we
Henson.
talk about Jim Henson?
Yes,
I don't
extensively. I'm gonna glide kick him because he's alone, and that worked.
Knee stomp. And apparently...
and testy smash.
Zesty Smash?
Testy smash.
Oh, I totally...
Come on down here. Gotcha. I think there's only one left. Oh mama, he's in fear for his life from the long arm of the bat. I think we got him. Intimidation bonus too. Hey, check it out. We did it.
So,
That guy
there you
looks
go.
like he's wearing a
The
very
Muppets got us
bizarre.
through it.
He's looking like he's wearing a very bizarre breast piece.
Okay.
You see it, don't you?
Not really.
Well, you gotta tilt your head right. How about now?
Okay.
The problem is you'd have to. I'm not sure. I forgot about those. I'm not sure. None of the Muppets ever really were their own villains in the films. Normally, the villains were normally the people,
Oh, that's
which is a commentary in and of itself, I suppose. But I mean, I think you could make. I
Who
think
would
you
you
could.
couple with? Because, I mean, you have...
I think you could turn Gonzo into the Joker somewhat, as long as you didn't make him super sinister. If you just made him more of the kind of weird comic book silly, maybe that's more like the Riddler. But I don't.
No, I think the comic book... what's it? Who's the guy?
Well, Joker in the comics even.
Mark Hamill's Joker is fairly
Well,
zany.
but he likes. Yeah, but he still kills people, and it's like that. I don't think the Muppets could ever go quite that far.
Gonzo, that kills people.
Oh boy, what else? We gotta. Where's Miss Piggy? Is she Catwoman or is she?
She's got to be Catwoman. Because how funny would it be for her to be in the cat suit, but like super over the top, like,
I can't even jump over it. That's stupid. Super over the top. What? You got to finish that.
I'm just
plot.
saying, like, obviously, Miss Piggy is
Well,
a
I
little
don't-
rotund, and so
Sure, let's put it in the PC way. Because we all don't need to be thinking about this. Oh, hey, this is the... So this
I
is...
just think it's ironic, is all I'm saying.
Since I've been talking about this for most of the game at this point, let's get the final riddle piece with the two...
Riddle piece? That's what
Uh-oh.
you're going with? Is that what it's called?
No. Oh, they're not... It's not yet? Okay, I'm wrong. I thought I knew, and I don't. So I won't speak.
What? No, don't speak, don't speak.
Because that little riddle prompt that just came up, he's got a rifle.
Okay.
The riddle prompt that just
Does
came
he
up.
still have a jammed gun?
No, that's a different guy.
okay.
I do still have a jammer option for my gun. Well, maybe. I gotta wait for him to turn around. This is probably a high stakes game we're playing here. Because if he takes less time than I think he will. Oh, is he only looking between these two windows?
Couldn't be the open window.
Well, or behind him. So he's never going to turn around, apparently. Well, then that means... Well, I suppose I could... Oh, I can't... So I can't jam the gun unless I have a direct sight on it. Okay, but it wants to auto-lock, but it keeps blocking him right at the last second. Well, that's stupid.
Scoot forward just a...
Ah! You are so outmatched. I shouldn't even... Oh, crap. Okay, he's got mines all over the place. That was... Okay, he had a backup. Dang it. It still didn't help him, though. We just... What? Silent... Okay, it didn't give me the chance. We just menacingly walked towards him.
Not gonna have a good day with a gun today, huh? Sucks to be you.
Oh, heavens, what have I done? Oh, my gosh. Oh, look at what I've done to his
I
spine.
think you detached his skull without actually... It's that... What is
That's
it?
what we
is it called?
call it, an incomplete decapitation. And we send sudden onset scoliosis. Good heavens, what have we done to the poor man? The real question is Alfred Fozzie or is Fozzie Robin? Because I think that's funnier.
Fuzzy can't be Robin.
Well, because Robin was always slightly goofy in the childish sense. Why is... Oh, she's actually up here. So this is
Look who it is.
plot relevant.
What do you want, B-Man? Come to stick the knife in some more? Go
I
on,
believe this ends up being a ploy that she's tied up here to make us think that...
tell you about the crap
So-
Joker took from freezing locked up in
Yeah.
the boiler room.
Oh, and then we can put it back on her, which is funny. Which is a little... I don't know. Seems a little suspect, Batman. You didn't have to be like that. There's... Oh, right. So there's a bit of freeze technology that I... But we don't... When we said we're done with freeze, we are done with freeze. I think this is just some tech stuff. I don't think we talk to him again. I think Fozzie as Robin is a much funnier idea than Fozzie as Alfred, because Fozzie's not composed enough to be Alfred. Which does raise the question, who would be Alfred? And that's where I think Sam the Eagle comes in. Sam's got to be Alfred. 'Cause
Yeah,
he's
okay,
already
you
got
make
the
a
kind
case
of
there.
posh business kind of vibe. You will love
Wait.
justice.
What's that huge furry guy? That has to be Bane.
Huge furry guy.
That gigantically, like...
Oh, the one that's in the actual, like, it's a full body suit? I forget
That's
his
like
name.
the Muppet...
No, Animal's got to be Bane because the character fits too perfectly.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because we're talking comic book Bane, where he was the weird lucha libre wrestler. Problem is, we can't just go cramming all of them into one movie. We're talking about a series here.
At least 3 movies.
What do you think?
Like Mike.
Ho Chi Man. Hen.
Hen,
Mother hen.
tough.
Tug hen.
Tough and just, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Riddler. You're the best.
Wait, go back in there. What's the pink one?
It's
I think it was some
Catwoman's.
Pepto-Bismol that he needed.
It's Catwoman's
La la la
trophy.
la, Pepto-Bismol.
What on earth are you? You're off on your own. I think Grover as Because you'd have to make, I think, all of the somewhat sort of chaotic, slightly bizarre, because, again, they can't be truly villainous. So you'd have to make the villains the
See, if you're gonna bring in the Sesame Street side of things, though, then you have to have Robin be Elmo.
La 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 la. Robin's here.
well, it's not the worst fit, but I don't know, could work. Yeah, maybe. So we got snipers up there. There's snipers. And then we got these guys.
Commissioner Gordon is Big Bird.
I don't know what to think of that. I don't know. The real question is, where do Statler and Waldorf come in? And you know what? Well, no, I still like Sam the Eagle.
The Russian twins.
No, we're not gonna start bringing random people in. Statler and Waldorf could be. I don't know. Does Batman have hecklers? Batman doesn't really have like a J. Jonah Jameson character.
No.
Because then you could have just turned both of them into, I don't know, one's Jay and one's Jonah. The Jameson brothers. Now we got to do Muppet Spider-Man too. We'll leave that for another time. I think this is some Jay and Jonah Jameson. That's a brilliant joke. That you gotta admit that's funny. Jay and Jonah Jameson. Anywho, I think there's money in this idea. So if you've got puppeteering experience, or can do
want your resume,
or can do a decent impression of a random Muppet, but it can't be that good. It's got to be legally distinct. And
it's got to be the parody version.
Yeah, I think we've got something.
It's something, all right.
Well, we've probably spent enough time pontificating on this ridiculous idea. I'm gonna shock these men, literally.
So,
how do they know that? Oh, they saw me.
Shifting topics fairly dramatically here. I finished up the book we mentioned a couple
episodes ago.
And
get out of there, because that's where the snipers are.
And I had a particular. First of all, I thought the book was great. So for those that care to explore Eastern philosophy at all, and
in about as child-friendly a way as possible, that's probably more denigrating. I don't mean child-friendly, but beginner-friendly, shall we say?
That's a fair assessment. It's very approachable. That's what I would say.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
because so is Pooh.
And he makes a lot of great points. One of the things I think is very fitting to the Taoist kind of approach is the fact that the way he writes the book is very humorous. I mean, intentionally.
Again, as we said,
levitous.
It has to be. It can't possibly take itself that seriously.
Well, it doesn't take itself. He doesn't not take it seriously. He just is very clever, I suppose, in the way that I would say it.
How does this guy dodge this from that?
Anyway, but he actually, one of my favorite parts of the whole.
He's got an excerpt.
The whole thing, and I want to actually read it because it's worthwhile. And I think
is it at least brief?
It's brief, yes. So he compares the Pooh, which he says represents essentially
compares the Pooh
Taoism as a whole to the rest of the characters and how they are various disagreements, or not even disagreements, but just
antitheses.
Yeah, of Taoist thought. And so one of the ones that he specifically compares is Owl, and I thought it was interesting.
That's interesting.
That he uses Owl. Initially, he talks about Confucianism and the fact that they tend to.
I could buy that, but then I would have thought Rabbit more was.
But then he says, and this I thought was interesting. He broadens that slightly and basically says Confucianism is really representative of the larger academic sphere, and he levels this claim, and it's so poignant to me, and I think it actually hits on a topic that you and I can extrapolate on slightly, but it's...
Oh, that was going to happen anyways.
Well, yes, but this is just brilliant. So he talks about what would happen if we went into Owl's house and, the the idea that we would actually interact with, because Pooh makes the case for Owl that Owl knows basically everything, and if we have answers, we can find it there, kind of a thing. And I think that's fairly true of the book, or of even the early movies, where you go.
Well, see, that's
Pooh
the kind
had
of stuff
that
I'm not as super familiar with those things, because I didn't watch a whole lot of the movies as a kid. I only know the basic caricature of each of the characters. I mean, they are sort of caricatures of already, but...
So he talks about the idea that the academic doesn't usually put Taoist principles into practice in everyday sort of way, and explains of them
I'm
tends
getting
to
tossed around in here.
So he says explanations of them tend to leave out rather important details, such as how they work or where you can apply them. And then this is where it gets crazy to me, because again, he's talking about broader academia, and he says, on top of that, it is very hard to find any of the spirit of Taoism in the lifeless writings of humorless academic morticians whose bleached out scholarly dissertations contain no more of the character of Taoist wisdom than does a typical wax museum.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
I might have been wrong about it being approachable. Them's fighting words.
No, it was brilliant because, and we've said this before.
I mean, not that I disagree, but still.
Because then he later talks about the idea that, especially in kind of Western Confucianist circles, they approach knowledge for knowledge's sake. And it's basically saying, okay, if you are only learning because you want to appear smart, or learning in order to somehow gain a higher status.
Yeah, I was going to say the term learning knowledge for knowledge's sake, I think, is normally associated positively.
Well, no, what he's saying is...
You're saying learning knowledge for
your own just...
this, yeah.
Affirmation. And it's like, okay...
Your own appearance.
And you go, okay, what he makes the case for is a Taoist principle would be, if you have the knowledge, share it, or basically allow other people to come with you and alongside of you in your learning, you know. But there's a lot of academic circles that are set up very much like, even in the way that your language changes and you begin to interact with different people, it's set up in a way that intentionally puts it in a hierarchical kind of setup that causes it not to be approached by the common man. And that's very non-Taoist, and in fact anti-Tao. And so basically what he says is...
I can stealth take down guys just because he's wearing body armor? I can stick my ears right up him, though.
I'm fairly confident I have
I am actually performing a kind of auditory rectal exam. Just checking, we've got this new age method, man. You just gotta listen to your prostate.
But anyway, I thought I would ask you what you thought about if you are learning knowledge, but you aren't being able to communicate that knowledge or utilize that knowledge in application. Well, what use is it?
Okay. Wow, that was quite a still. I don't even know what happened to me.
You know, I mean, like, what are your thoughts on
because
what the purpose
I still think knowledge for knowledge's sake, in the positive sense of doing it simply because you find it interesting. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yes, but my point is, if you aren't then later on in your life, or at some point even in discussion,
I suppose
being
if
able
it
to
hasn't
actually utilize
in
discussion or in...
If it hasn't stuck with you, like if you learned it but it actually hasn't engendered any sort of effect in you, then I suppose you probably haven't actually grasped it fully at that point.
Well, not just that, but I go, well, then what's the purpose?
Well, but then I don't think that's fair to say I think that means you haven't grasped it fully. You need to spend a little more time on it, because I think when you do, having knowledge truly, when you really understand it, it will always affect you even in small degrees. It will always change your way of thinking in some way, this or that. So I would say if it hasn't yet, you probably should give it another go. That's why I think we've talked about this. Have we talked? No, we didn't. We didn't talk about this on recording. We talked about this at a separate occasion, where sadly I still don't have the quote, even after not being able to pull it up then either, of some wise person from the past. Let's put it that way. Said something along the lines of, people often think that you're reading in itself makes you wise and makes you smart because you've read a whole bunch of books. But if you haven't really grasped them, then really all you've done is wasted your time. And that's, I don't know that I fully agree, because I think reading is, I think, a more constructive, even on a purely neurological level, reading is more empowering to your brain than just sitting and watching, YouTube for hours. You might not end in either case with new knowledge or with new understanding of things, but I think the act of reading is better for your
it is
brain.
Yeah, on a scientific level, that's true. But I'm just saying,
You're getting the same throat thing I'm having.
What I'm
Gotta get some
suggesting
tea or
is
something.
not that knowledge, the actual process. I think you're misunderstanding my point. I'm not suggesting that the process of
Well, no, I'm not
assimilating more knowledge is useless.
Well, no, but I'm
What
saying, but the person whose quote I cannot fully remember is basically saying you'd be far better off if you chose one book and just really poured over it and you
Right.
read it repeatedly and you dissected. You think in terms it's like there's, you should have some books, you should read many books, you should really wrestle with a few more, and you should digest a handful. And he used the term digest as the most thorough, because it makes sense when you think about digestion in terms of food.
Right.
It's the same thing mentally. We're going to really break it down and let it feed you, literally.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing. We're going, once you have what you will, if you've truly understood something, it will inevitably produce a sort of fruit in you.
Well, and if I
Whether
can-
or not it's a major thing, but it might, so I agree. You're going, that should be the better argument. It's not just, oh yeah, I've read all these books, therefore I'm smart.
Right.
It should be, I've read these books and I understand them, and as a result of that, they have changed my way of thinking, and it doesn't have to be in major ways. But I think that's the same of the gaining of knowledge or wisdom even. If it hasn't actually brought about the change you're talking about, then I would say you probably haven't fully understood it
Once
yet.
again, you're appropriating versus assimilating an idea.
You got to get some water or something.
But anyway, I thought it was a
missed
brilliant
him.
critique to academia, because we've talked about
Well,
the idea
you
that-
especially have probably more thoughts on that.
Well,
having
You
had to deal
definitely
with it.
had the thought, and we've both said that
beat 'em
going
down.
back to Greek antiquity, the idea of
This is
I'm just some
just
random philosopher and I'm down on the street corner. I'm available
Well,
to
and
the
I-
common man. You know what I'm saying?
there was a joke-
which is definitely anti-academia as far as how it's set
Yeah,
up
definitely. There was a joke that I thought sadly missed the whole point because it was meant to be teasing, or maybe not. I mean, that's how it came across to me, that it was more like. Well, I'll say it first and then explain it. So it was the joke of saying, philosophy nowadays. I've spent the last 10 years poring over all of the literature on this topic, and I've assimilated it into and added some of my own opinions and created this, idea that I've created numerous sources for, so you can check my work. Maybe it's not, maybe I don't know. Give it a chance. And it's almost insecure, where it's having to rely on so many other things. Whereas then it's like philosophy 2,000 years ago. I came up with this while I was in the bath. I think it constitutes the self-evident laws of nature and the universe. And it's like, and I think they were meaning it. I mean, maybe not. I don't recall who it was that posted it. But it seemed as though it was meant to be like, the old people were a little arrogant at times, and now that we have it again, it redounds to the whole arguments from authority where, because I've read this stuff and I'm citing other famous people, clearly therefore what I'm saying is in some way more valid. But I go, the whole point of philosophy is so that as long as you understand some of the basic principles of logic, then your argument should stand for itself. It shouldn't need quotations and citations from random people. And that's kind of where I think you get the point where you're going, the average street philosopher,
Right.
as it was, you're just going isn't that pretty sure it's a logical fallacy to dismiss an argument simply because it comes from someone without much credibility.
Correct.
Because that might be a reason to doubt an argument, but it's no reason to dismiss it. Because as long as the logic is sound, an argument can come from anyone. So that's why I think...
Correct. And that's why I thought that was such a poignant critique, because, again, I understand the irony as someone who has pursued higher education to say, well, academia is actually a negative thing. But what he's saying is, it can
I
cloud.
think negative's probably a little too strong.
Yes, but the case he's making is it can cloud your ability to understand life and nature as a whole.
And
which
as
is very,
we've said in a previous video, to go back to that one quote I still couldn't remember fully properly, it does have a tendency to create people who assert and think that they found.
yes,
rather than
it's a false sense of
they
arrival.
go, oh, I've done all this and I've read this and I know what I'm talking about. When it's like, again, if you haven't fully grasped it, if you just think that reading it makes you right, you're wrong.
Well, and I think the quote of about the
Come on, get over there.
the concept of reading makes a broad man, the speaking makes a persuasive man, and writing makes an exact man. It's the concept that's saying,
I don't know that I've heard that.
yeah,
Breakdown.
I assure you've heard that, but
I've heard other variants of it, but
I mean the concept that if you read, that's great. You've now interacted with more ideas than just your own. That's a positive thing. But don't think for 1 second that simply because you've interacted with a lot of ideas that you now have some sort of higher. I don't know.
Yes, if they haven't, again, if you haven't digested them, then they're just all they do is pass through you. Let's carry the analogy to its conclusion.
Yeah.
Then they just come right back out more useless than when they went in.
In other words, your academia is. No, I'm just kidding. But the
People
other
don't
thing,
give a frick about your degree.
frick your degree and the neck it rode in on, and the what is it? The
Diploma.
diploma it rode in on. But I think
Beat him down.
The other thing he brought up, which I found very profound,
I can. This guy was a Riddler thug, apparently.
slightly convenient, in fact, is that poo, but I think it's pronounced a little bit more in the actual, what is it called, Mandarin or whatever. It would be
Puh.
almost.
Well,
puh.
no, but it's not a U. It's double O.
Yeah, but it's
have no clue how
the
that's
uncarved
pronounced.
block, and it's the concept of raw potential for just like it's untouched, unsullied, nothing's been done on it. It's just raw potential.
But the real question is,
And-
did we discuss at some point? We got so many upgrades that I don't want. I'll just get this because it's the only one we haven't got yet, and I'm never going to use it. Did we discuss? Was this a private discussion or was it on one of these on air, where we talked about the whole Confucian versus Taoist opposition? Yes, but also what do you call it?
Similarity, comparison.
Well, the fact that they go together. Have we talked about this? Well,
yes, but I have some thoughts after having read this
because
book.
again, we're gonna, as I always do, I'm gonna redound to Alan Watts because I think he does it better. He'll say it better than I could, because he has a whole talk about Confucianism. He's sort of the breakdown is, people in their 20s study Confucianism, people in their 60s study Taoism, because when you're young, the Confucianist idea is much more about ordering a society, the way you should behave for not only as yourself to be a responsible individual, but to be a helpful member of society. And it's a lot more, you could call it rule-based, and it does essentially take children who are the sort of perfect idealization of that uncarved block mentality, and it inevitably chisels and shapes them so that, but you might argue that there's a certain degree to which that's necessary, because you can't, the way he describes it, and I think it's difficult to summarize properly.
I may be able to.
You should just
actually.
listen to him do it because he's better anyways. But the point is, you have to create some semblance of a society in which people can interact, and then the goal is later in life, once they've got that, you have to subtract some of it in order to get them back to basically being, instead of being the truly uncarved block that is ultimately all potential but also chaotic, because none of it's realized.
Right.
You have to shape them first, which means removing a lot of potential, and then they themselves have to somehow
slough off the exterior.
And that's where you go. Confucianism shapes, Taoism helps you remove.
You're just full of the
Well,
helpful.
Dude, I've been watching Alan Watts for years at this point.
It's on a psychological level, it's directly correlated to scaffolding. It's
Well, that's
psychological
a good term
scaffolding.
for it. Well, and I've also been reading it's fascinating how things line up when you read a lot.
Yeah,
Because I've also
exactly.
been reading 12 Rules for Life, and there's literally a chapter in which he uses almost that exact. There it is.
Well,
I knew
again,
this came
it's a
at some point.
psychological term. I was about to say, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss
I thought
it.
I had to go in there and get it, but I can't. And he talks about like, oh, you have to, he even uses the uncarved block, how it has infinite potential but also infinite variability, thus making it effectively useless.
Well,
Because you can't count on it for
it's
anything.
potential energy versus kinetic.
And so he's going,
you know.
that's where you have to carve it, but then you don't want to, it can't be that rigid. It also has to be able to adapt.
Right.
And you're going, this is exactly the same. He just doesn't use the same terms, but it's the exact same idea.
So here's the thing: there is a ancient artistic rendering within China that is brilliant in understanding the three various threads of Eastern philosophy, or I would say the primary three threads. It's called the Vinegar Tasters, and it is
I'm not at all familiar with
this. It was super helpful for me, and it is three different of the kind of core philosophers. It's
It would be Confucius, Lao Tzu,
Confucius, and then Buddhism, which would be
but that wasn't Buddha
but-
wasn't Chinese.
correct. But I'm just saying those three. So it was Confucius.
So just Eastern philosophers,
yeah.
not okay.
So Confucius, Buddha, and then
is it Lao Tzu?
and then Lao Tzu. So the as they're tasting it, each person has a slightly different expression on their face. So Confucianists, they have this sour expression on their
figured, yeah.
face, which is very much I'm trying to, because Confucianism is I'm almost at war with, or at odds with, I think is a better way of putting it, the nature that is around me, because I'm trying to
You're trying to
return
create something,
to
that you
something
can.
that is
Yeah.
static and structured and traditional and all this kind of stuff. And that's very
Ouch.
similar to what you said, where it's
I took away their guns. How are they doing this?
and as
No.
you said, as you broaden
Can't go
your
anywhere.
perspective within literary context, you also realize that it has so much contextual relation to even something like mathematics. You go, how much of mathematics is them teaching you a rule that only later you learn to slough off because it's not
Well, that's
always
not even
true,
math.
you know?
That's just school in general.
right. I mean,
How many times were you taught something in middle school that your high school teacher then go, yeah, that's not always true. It's just an easy abstraction because otherwise you'd never learn it.
Right. And so then the Buddhist idea is it's bitter because their concept of life is I have to rise above as a whole and somehow transcend the dust that is life or earth. And
The Zen man smiles.
and then the Taoist is smiling, yeah. And it's because he's embracing the fact that
What a game this is.
you just kind of
so you know
say,
use another Wattsism.
it's a degree of like I'm
Why
gonna
are
just
they-
participate in the dust
They're looking
because
at,
I just am.
they're looking at something.
They
They were both
Very
they were both
skeletal.
aiming over there. Well, because we're using X-rays.
I know, but I'm saying they normally don't look quite that.
Well, they're the thin bony guys. What did you expect? They're the snipers. No. Nice try.
That was a brilliant.
That was called the bat clothesline. Oof, that made me wince. I socked him. I kicked him so hard in the groin that he came off the ground.
So anyway, Vinegar Tasters, it's great.
I think I don't think. Have I ever talked about Alan Watts truly? Like, I mean, I know I often bring him up in these things, but have I ever actually gone into the?
I don't know that you've really been able to get off on a real bird trail or a
You want to be
tangent.
more careful with your words.
I'm okay. Wow, I'm saying you have not been given the latitude.
I
to...
tend to feel a little sheepish about it because it would, if I didn't control myself, it would be all the time.
Really? I don't know that.
I find that he's
to
got
be fair, I haven't
he's
read
got
enough of
something.
him, but-
Well, it's not even reading. You don't have to read. You can just listen to him.
yeah.
In fact, he's got quite a number of lectures. If you just look up YouTube Alan Watts, you'll
I
getting
thought
hiccups.
that he wasn't freaky anymore.
This is relevant, you'll see, because it ends up. I actually don't know how they explain this. Because it's a bit of a this is what I thought when I first did it.
Go amiss. I mean, if you wanted to be cured so badly, you only
See, I don't know actually how they explain that.
It looks like I need to teach you some respect.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah, it's weird.
teach me, Joker.
So this is not strictly the boss fight of the game, because the game goes on for a fair bit after this, but this is...
Kind of a pretty.
It's. I would
significant
almost. I would
milestone.
call it somewhat of the real climax, because the main villain,
apex.
the arguable villain of the whole thing, is Strange, who's set up Arkham Asylum, and
Is who?
Doctor Strange, who we've hardly met. That's why I don't find his. Yeah, the weird, creepy neckbeard guy. Yeah, we've hardly met him. We met him at the very beginning and haven't interacted with him much since. That's why I find this to be the real climax of the game.
Well, but isn't that so?
Because this is, we've been dealing with Joker the whole time. So I feel like after this, when we finally get our confrontation and bring down Strange, it's a little less cathartic.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Anyway,
I mean, we are getting closer to the end of the game anyways, but we're not like right there.
Going to Alan Watts.
Well, the thing that I think it's, I mean, I could just talk about, basically what I could do is just synopsize, oh, it's our Hammer friend. I could synopsize just about every lecture of his I've listened to, because they all cohesively fit together when you've listened to enough of them. You start to see the threads he's pulling on all the time. But I think the way he would describe the same kind of thing with those three is that he talks about how, arguably Hinduism and the Indian subcontinent and all of that. Ooh, I forgot about the trains. All of that culture is arguably one of the oldest on Earth.
Yeah.
Which means their cultural traditions, including the Hindu sort of belief system, develops not... He sort of takes a somewhat Jordan Peterson-ish approach where he refers to it more as mythology than actual religion, where it's used more allegorically to describe principles of life.
Yeah, virtues. Yeah.
And so he goes, arguably being that it's one of the older societies, the lessons their mythology teaches are perhaps some of the oldest and therefore most worth adhering to. But then he also talks about how he actually, I could just post a whole bunch of links for this one, but I'm going to have to restrain myself. There's one in which he talks about how it's actually somewhat dangerous for Westerners to pursue things like yoga and other traditionally like Buddhist practices because our culture doesn't have the history theirs does. Because things like yoga and those various other meditations and things like that were intended to be ways of breaking free of the social stigmas they would have grown up with.
Yeah.
As for thousands of years. So they don't apply to our culture as directly. Pass that on, because I'm now having to try and formulate even more profound topics than normal.
I told you this would be rich.
Well, you gave me a bird trail, and it may be, I don't know, some other kind of trail.
a crab
A
trail.
long trail.
Oh dear. Okay, I don't know that I'm.
Well, we'll give you a couple goes because I need a break for a second. And then he actually describes in a way I think is very fascinating that Buddhism could be described as Hinduism stripped for export.
Huh.
Which I think is a fascinating way of putting it, because it really does. And in fact, his book, or I mean one of his books, he's written several books, but the one that I recommend a lot if you're interested in this is called The Way of Zen. And it goes through the...
How do I do the...
You gotta stay away from Hammerman.
But I'm saying away. It says L away and then...
LOA. I think
Like
you mean
it's-
LOL.
No, I'm saying it's... Okay. No.
Just, I don't know,
Go ahead.
stay alive.
Sorry, go
Keep
on.
yourself alive.
You're talking about
the history of
package
the book,
export.
yeah. And the book that in his book, he goes through all the history of like how each philosophy developed the next. And so Buddhism is in a way the response to, it's a consolidation of the Hindu ideas so that it could be better understood. Because again, you're talking about, it's the Jordan Peterson approach. You're saying distill the mythology down to its basics, because that's what you can apply to life. And so he then talked about how Buddhism was spread to China, which then the Chinese adapted because they are also an equally long-lived culture. So they, having their own traditions and mythologies and set up all that, they took what Buddhism had and went, this has got some good ideas. But they saw the kind of thing you're talking about, where they go, Buddhism is a little too bitter about it.
Right.
Where they're going, it's a bit...
It's cynical.
Which is, yeah, and he even describes the difference between, you know, even things like because what everyone thinks of when they think Buddhist, they think the Tibetan monks wearing the yellow robes, shaving their head, doing kung fu 6 hours a day or whatever it is. And you're going, that's very much the sort of Indian traditional Buddhism, which is almost the idea of like, it expects too much of you. Right. You're going, it expects that the only way you'll achieve enlightenment is to live in a monastery and never do these various things and to have a nearly neurotic level of control over your life.
Yeah, well,
and he's going, that's unreasonable.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's showing, so the Chinese sort of...
It doesn't engage life,
yeah, exactly. You know, it's almost as if you've read the book. Because he talks about it going, the Chinese realize this is, you know, obviously this would work if you had the time, but most people don't, and yet it seems too limiting. So they went, well, surely there's a way that the person can understand this without having to go to all these extremes. And so they then reinterpreted the Buddhist sort of, or rather the Hindu idea, through the Taoist, because technically speaking, what's it called? The Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
The arguable, you know, founding book of Taoism had already been written by the time Buddhism reached China.
Right.
So when they were attempting to translate Buddhist ideas, they went, oh, well, this is kind of similar to this. We'll use these terms from this book, which then created arguably the sort of new Neo-Taoism.
Right.
And then that eventually reached Japan and became Zen. And he, of course, being a Zen, I don't know actually what his qualifications are. I know that he studied in Japan and has some degree of authority on the subject. But being a more of a Zen-focused practitioner, I guess, that doesn't seem like the right word. But he argues that Zen, having gone through several layers of distillation from very old cultures, it has achieved where you're going, the Buddhists thought, oh, this is bitter and it's too negative.
Right.
Then the Confucianists was sort of like, well,
we have to return to tradition or
we've got to find some, and then whereas the Zen people just went, oh, well, maybe it's like, well, isn't this something?
Yeah, exactly.
And he actually one of the phrases that I think he uses in I mean, part of the reason, if you've never heard of him at all, chances are you've actually heard snippets of his stuff because he gets used out of context all the time. But he's got this like super, very chill British, old school British voice. And so one of the ways he describes it that stuck with me, just because part of it is how his inflection of it, is he just goes, you know, like the only thing you can think is, well, what a game this is. And you're like, that's sometimes there's times in life when you just kind of gotta grab yourself and go, you know what a game this is. Yeah. Things might be going crazy, but isn't this something? Isn't that great?
Well, and I think that's why in the...
Is that my rabbit trail? Was it bigger than a rabbit? It might be a hair trail.
I think, but again, it's great because it does... within that vinegar tasters concept, it's, again, the smiling philosopher is the one who has reached the ability to go, well, yeah, it's vinegar, but it also has tastes of... You know, it's unique and it's worth tasting. Well, just simply for the sake of it.
Another one he talks about a lot is, it's a similar sentiment, but he says, sometimes you just have to say to the world, well, let's see what you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can't always, you try to micromanage and all that does is drive you nuts. So sometimes you just got to look back and trust the world and say, well, let's see what you're going to do. Because at the very least, it'll be interesting. There's one lecture I wish I could find, because I think the stuff he discussed, he does it so well, and I haven't been able to find another lecture that has similar stuff. But he makes the case, he's going, imagine if you had the ability, basically, imagine every night when you went to sleep, you dreamed an entire life from start to finish. Like every night you had a dream that you were born, you lived, you died, and it was every night you lived through the whole thing. And you could control how it went. Like the night before you went to sleep, you could actually control, this is what I'm going to dream about and this is how my life's going to be. Obviously, for the first week, every life's going to be great, everything's going to go perfectly, and you're going to have like this ultimate, you know, perfect existence. And then by, you know, the end of the first month of that, you're going to go, well, this is getting kind of boring. Because especially if you think every night you're dreaming 70 years worth of life,
Well,
and it's as if you're living it, and then you wake up the next day having it all been sort of a dream. You're going, eventually you might start to say, well, what if maybe I'll add in a little bit more
drama.
Some drama to go, well, maybe this could be, and then you'll know, well, this is how we'll get out of it. We'll have some drama in the moment, and then it'll be resolved. And eventually, if you did this for, your whole life, by the time you were older, chances are you'd basically get to, your night before and just go, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Whatever dream I'm going to have tonight, won't it be interesting?
Yeah,
And
I won't try to control
it could be frightening, it could be terrifying, and you may not know how it's going to be resolved. But and he even draws the comparison to saying, sometimes you think of it as a play where you're going, you might know on a meta level it's fake.
Yeah.
But in the moment you're getting absorbed in it. And that's the same with the dream where you're going, you might even in the dream be facing circumstances that make you go, wow, this is really tough. It's frightening, but you'll wake up and go, oh, of course it was a dream, and that's the whole point, is I was getting too involved in the game, as he would often call it. I was trying, and he said,
too hard.
yeah, and sometimes that's part of the fun, is to get involved in the game. Why else do you play games?
Right.
But sometimes you got to realize it's just a game.
Right.
And he makes that comparison. I didn't even get hit. I didn't even get taken out by a person. I was get hit by a car.
No, I think that actually.
I wish I could find that lecture, because he says it so much better and develops it in so much better a way. Because basically that is this whole, and that's where some people, that's where Zen really does push the boundaries of perception. Because some people might go, oh, it's, about mindfulness and balance, and we can accept all those things. Especially I think the Western mind takes an issue with, because he would make the statement of going, that's what you are. Right. He actually makes that argument in the lecture. And I'll admit, even myself, I was like, oof, that's hard to really grasp. He's going, the life, you could entirely believe that the life you're currently living is one of those dreams.
Yeah.
And that is arguably what he would describe as finding enlightenment, to remember, oh, I'm dreaming. Which means, as hard as this may be, as weird and as stressful and as chaotic, I am still dreaming, and none of this really is real. Therefore, I may as well go along with it and see what's going to happen.
It reminds me a bit of the third Matrix movie, because as much as I know people don't necessarily like all of them.
I have certainly heard that opinion. I have not seen more than the first.
The third one isn't great, but there is an interesting plot development in the third one I find interesting, even just on a philosophical level, because he's talking to the God figure, essentially. Actually, it may be the second one.
He's
talking to the architect, or the one who's put the world together, but still one of the computers, essentially. And he said, what happened is we realized with humanity, we put together a perfect utopia, and it completely failed. Yeah. Why? Because humanity don't actually want perfect utopia. No. They want struggle. They want striving. They desire for that.
It's got to be drama, and that's where you go in the whole concept of why he describes it. Why else? The play is the perfect concept, or the game. Because why do you play games? Because they're completely arbitrary. Nothing about this matters.
Right.
And yet something in you wants the competition, wants the drama, wants the excitement. And the part of you that wants those things can often get carried away. That's why, and that's one of the things he talks about extensively, is you don't have to stay enlightened. People, and that's kind of where the Buddhists, where he says the Buddhists sometimes get it wrong.
Because again,
they're thinking we have to be enlightened all the time, so we can't, you have to be perfect. You can never break from your, oaths and your I don't know, mantras and all that. Whereas the Zen man goes, why not? Sometimes he's like, sometimes it's fun to play a game. Sometimes it's fun to go to the theater, and sometimes you even get so absorbed in it. Sometimes the show is so gripping that you'll forget it's a show. And it'll come to the end and you'll realize, oh, wow, this of course, I've forgotten.
Right.
And that sometimes is pleasant. Now, you can't stay there, but every now and again, it's fun to play the game. And that's why I think he's just, if you are completely unschooled in Eastern thought, especially when it comes to these major philosophies, I would really recommend, ultimately his bent is towards Zen, of course. So I suppose if you are interested in one of the other schools, he may not have quite as much. Then again, I haven't searched. But I think it's one of the most approachable sources to really begin
Yeah.
is with Alan Watts, just because he is an approachable person. I mean, that's the reason I first found his videos is just because they were interesting to listen to. Like, he's
also a very broadly.
Well, he's
a
incredibly
broadly taught
eloquent.
Man, I'm
And
saying, like, even within the theology that he has behind his belt and all this other stuff,
boy.
he's able to relate to things on more of a an informed level than a lot of
Well, he's incredibly
people are.
well read. He's very versatile, and he's just a very gifted speaker. So it really makes him just interesting to listen to, even if you're not listening to it for, even if you aren't listening to it for any kind of, I don't know, philosophical reasons. It's honestly just interesting to listen to. We're probably getting close to a stopping point. So let's see if we can wrap up the topics and this fight. Basically, you should check out Alan Watts. Literally, look him up on Google and listen to the first one. I mean, I could probably recommend some, but any of them are going to be interesting at the very least. Some might even be informative. I mean, they will all be informative, but at the very least, even if you're not even that well disposed towards Eastern philosophy, I guarantee you'll find him interesting. Just because, honestly, minor aside, could perhaps be used to wind down the topic. If I could pick one oratory style to be able to emulate in terms of as a public speaker, if I ever had the role of speaking publicly and could be sort of given, or not even given because that sounds cheap, but if I could hone the craft to be like any specific person, I would probably go with his style. Because it's not, you might not consider it as authoritative as, some of the classic, who am I thinking, like Cicero and the classic orators of history. But I think the fact that it isn't authoritative was what makes it very approachable, because he does not come across as like a super, I'm so wise, you should listen to me. It's very conversational.
We're back to full circle here. Because again, it's the down to earth. I'm actually going to talk to you on your level because it's for the common man. In fact, again, going back to the book, and I'm not going to read anything from it, but the one of the things he brings as a charge again against Owl specifically, by comparison to the purest Taoist principles within Pooh, he talks about the fact that Owl constantly uses big words to strictly relate to others that are on his playing field, as well as to put down other people to make sure they're beneath him. And it's like, that's not what knowledge is for. Like, that's just not. And I think you hit it on the head when you said Alan Watts, the reason that you would say he is classified as somebody that is significant is because of the fact that he's a voice for the common man. I mean, it's
but he's no less. I mean, he's unbelievably eloquent.
Oh, for sure. I'm not discounting
And
that.
I mean, one of the things that I find one of the reasons that I wish I could talk like him, even just in daily speech, is you go and he's not just well read; it's almost scary. You're going, because in one of his talks he actually describes how he never prepares his speeches, and I know there's a degree to which it's kind of like this. It was his profession for a time, giving these lectures, so it's all you could almost make it. I think you could make the argument that it's a little like a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like they hone a particular talk
Skill set,
or bit as it is until they have it down, I think he's probably okay, got the big guy out now. I think he's sort of got that, but it never comes across as rehearsed.
Yeah,
and there's definitely times where you're going, he'll just pull out, if the conversation flows to a particular spot, he'll just pull out references from literally anything. It could be something as heady as scripture or Hindu texts, and he like random quotes from Alice in Wonderland, and you're going, this is unexpected, and yet because he's so well read and he knows that it's not just he's not throwing them in there to make himself seem grandiose. It's literally like, oh wow, that fits perfectly,
right?
And it's just some random quote from who knows where,
right?
So again, there we go. That should get that. Now it's all out of my system. I won't have to bring him up for at least a couple more videos.
And the bottom line is, when you learn knowledge,
are we not going to finish the fight?
I don't know if we will.
Well,
not for me. So if you'd like to do it.
What are we at? We'll make it. We'll go slightly long and see if we can. Let's wind down the topics, and I'll see if I can focus in and try to get this out of the way.
I think again we've come
come
full circle in saying knowledge should be used it's power in not in that it gives you power over others. It's power empowerment for yourself, and that I think is a significant distinction, because it's not meant to be something that can't be shared or contributed. It's supposed to be debated. It's supposed to be discussed. It's supposed to be utilized to further enrich the lives of not only yourself but others around you. So,
well, there you go. Let's keep the topics at a dull roar while we get this out of the way.
Let them just burn in small embers.
Yeah, I don't know, things. Give us some like simple first date type questions, like what's your favorite cheese? How do you like coffee?
Well, I mean, if you're still we can even just sit on the topic of Winnie the Pooh, just simply because we're using that as a framework.
Well, I'm not as versed in Winnie the Pooh. It was a little before my time.
Was it really?
A little bit. Like I got mostly reruns as a kid.
But I mean, was there a character that ever stood out to you?
More than others. I mean, I actually do have always liked Pooh the most. Not for any any of the reasons we've discussed here. Mostly just because I think he's, I don't know. There's a sort of, I think he's certainly and even deliberately the more sort of lovable of them because of his simplicity. Where it's the whole, it's written into them with the whole silly bear thing. That's not mean. It's sort of it's endearing, if anything.
Right.
So it's like, oh, silly old bear. Where it's this is not undoable, but I'm not sure I'm gonna get it. I've slipped up one too many times. Hammerman came in strong.
What's interesting?
Well, I wanted to do it, but
that guy came in like a wrecking ball.
Well, we'll leave it at that. I have no clue how to wrap this one up, so you got a clue?
Not really, no.
If I was thinking Blue's Clues. I was going, how could I wrap that in but then I realized I would have to. No,
You'd have to set that up.
I'm above such things these days. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, look forward to your tomorrow.
Really? Don't try to force a philosophical ending.
I'm not. I'm just saying there's...
Yum, tasty vinegar.